keeping Enlil awake by reason of our babble. Brothers of the Serpent podcast. Coming back and continuing directly into the story that Kyle has been telling fantastically, the epic of Gilgamesh, king of Uruk.
All right, so they're on their way to finally kill this weapon, Humbaba, who was made by Enlil.
Yeah.
To protect the cedar forest, the guardian of the forest. And they start off by chopping the cedar trees down at the edge of the forest. Like they just, like one of them, I can't remember which one, just like slices the cedar tree down, right? This massive tree. And they hear Humbaba back there just like, "Wah!" Like he gets all pissed. So they cut a couple of trees down and they're making their way trying to find him. And basically their plan was he is described as having these 7 splendors that he can put on himself, and they're his weapons, right? And then he has something else. I can't remember what it is. I took some notes, but
Splendor being like a shiny...
Doesn't say.
Yeah.
But it sort of infers that whatever they are his weapons,
right?
That he has, right? And then his eye or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let me see. I've got a note of it here.
So one of the things that, while you're looking at that, one of the ideas here is that, and you mentioned it, the cedar forest is probably Lebanon. This is Lebanon's cedar forest is famous, and it's in biblical texts and it's in ancient texts, and like the cedars were considered to be of the gods. I mean, in the Bible, there's references to various, like the Ammonites, the Canaanites were as tall as the cedars of Lebanon. So there's lots of references to the cedars and the giants and the ancient gods and how this was a sacred place.
Yeah. So yeah, he had this thing called the Dreadful Blaze, which was from the eye, which is why we think it's a laser.
Yeah.
And the 7 splendors, which doesn't really describe, but their strategy was like, if we get to him before he can put on the 7 splendors, because like at one point Gilgamesh says like he's only got one of them on. Let us get to him before he gets the other 6.
Right. So let's start knocking down trees and making shitloads of noise.
Right. So they get there and they they basically catch him off guard, and he knows he's done. Right. They've got him like pinned or trapped or whatever. And Humbaba starts talking to Gilgamesh, and he's like, dude, like he's trying to convince him, like, hey,
don't kill me.
Yeah, don't kill me, bro. Like, if you don't kill me, I will cut down these cedars and I'll build you a palace, and I'll be your servant or whatever. And he's telling him all this stuff, and
that's very fairy tale right there.
Yeah, and Enkidu is just standing there like polishing his freaking axe, and he's just like, don't listen to him, bro. He's lying. He's straight up just like, yeah. He's just like, he's like,
Keep
yeah.
talking,
He's like, and then Humbaba gets all pissed at Enkidu, and he's like, he starts cursing him and everything, and he's like, yeah. He just looks at Gilgamesh, and he's like, bro, let's kill him right now before he can do any of this shit.
Yeah.
And then
he's stalling for time.
Right. He's stalling for time because these other 6 things, whatever they are, they're like, Enkidu describes them as he has a metaphor. He's like, we'll kill him now, and then the pups or the, whatever will scatter. Right. And so we'll just chase them down, and then we'll collect them all together, and whatever, won't be a problem. So finally Gilgamesh is like, you're right, slice, and just like nails him, and then Enkidu nails him, and they basically just murder his ass right there. And then after they kill him, they go through the whole forest, and they cut down all the trees, and Enkidu is ripping up the roots of the trees, and they uncover the ancient dwellings of the Anunnaki. Under the forest, like under the roots of the trees.
It's buried.
Yeah, totally buried.
Wow.
So I don't know what that means. It doesn't really say. It refers in the story to the Anunnaki a couple of different times. They're like, in the story, they're sort of referenced in terms with the dead. They deal with the dead and the sort of like underworld. Not so much afterlife, but something to do with the dead.
Underground.
Yeah. The underworld or the
buried. Yeah.
But it's always in context of death, right? Like that, it would kind of be like, you know, like the Egyptian gods of the underworld,
Like Osiris.
yeah.
Okay.
Like they're not really physical here or whatever, but
then
their
they have-
dwellings are under. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. It's like there's something weird about that because
Yeah.
their dwellings are down there, and they call in the story they're called ancient.
Right.
It says they uncover the ancient dwellings of the Anunnaki.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, just again, we're not supposed to take this literally, but in a literal take, you basically have ancient constructions buried beneath enough soil that have then grown this enormous
Massive
ancient forest on
right?
it.
And so we're in Lebanon, near the cedar forest, and what's near there? Baalbek.
Baalbek.
So yeah, that was
Which is
first
where they
thing.
played beer pong.
And Baalbek looks like, you know, it's like an effigy.
Yeah. It's a man holding
Looks like a
bucket.
man.
Yeah. Holding
So-
a man bag.
So anyway, they after they kill Humbaba, they grab like all of the seven splendors and whatever else, and they take them all to to Enlil, right? And they lay them all out. And they're like, yeah. and Enlil just gets freaking pissed, dude, and he starts chewing them out. It's like, why did you do this? He gets all mad. And they like, it doesn't bother him at all. He bitches them out, and then he takes the seven splendors and he passes out the seven splendors. Like he passes out, he curses them, and he takes the dreadful blaze and the seven splendors, and he gives the first to the river, to the lion, to the stone of execration, which means the cursed stone, to the mountain, and to the dreaded daughter of the queen of hell. That's what Enlil gives these powerful weapons to. Right?
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Enlil.
Thanks, buddy. So
The dreaded daughter of the queen of hell.
that's right.
God.
So Enkidu and Gilgamesh, like, they're all proud of themselves, and he just bitches them out and then takes all the stuff, and then they're like, praise Ea! Ea is Enki, which is Enlil's brother.
I fucking love these guys.
And they're like, they give all the glory to Ea. They're like, all the glory goes to Ea, right
man.
in Enlil's face, dude, and then they bail.
That's bad.
So they go back to Uruk and like, you know, get all cleaned up, and they just have this big parade in the city, and everybody's like, holy shit, you guys are badass. And meanwhile, Inanna, who is, she's a goddess of war.
Granddaughter of Anu.
Yeah. And she's, I guess, related to Enlil
Yeah, she is.
and Enki.
She's like
Half
their
sister.
niece. Or
Oh,
something.
niece?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Enlil and Enki are the sons of Anu.
Yeah.
She's the granddaughter, so she's like a.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she is, in this epic, she's called Ishtar.
Yes.
But it's the same person.
Yeah. Interestingly, the in a lot of the depictions that you see of Enki or Enlil, and there's even the famous one that's in the London Museum where Inanna has the bird talon feet,
Yeah, yeah.
and she's holding the two rings of power or whatever.
Yeah.
To us, it looks like she has a long head with horns, but that's called the serpent crown of Ishtar. Like that's they call it the serpent crown of Ishtar.
Dude,
But
she's crazy.
Yes.
She is a mean bitch.
yeah, yeah.
So she sees Gilgamesh like in all of his glory after this battle, and he's like decked himself out, you know,
Yeah.
for the parade and everything, and he's all cleaned up and just looking awesome, and she just like lusts after him.
Right. Yeah, I remember.
And so
this
she
part of the
goes and
story.
tries to make the moves on him, and she's like, "Hey, buddy, like you can be my husband, and like I will do all this amazing goddess stuff for you." And Gilgamesh was like, "Oh man, that'd be great.
I got to calibrate this.
I
thing,
could give you bread. I could give you like some corn." I think no. Basically,
I got to calibrate this thing.
he ends up like he just very calmly is like, okay, so you've had like how many husbands?
Oh, yeah.
And like this one, you really loved this guy, And
He did.
Then you, that's right. And he just goes down the line. It's like, you curse this guy, and he's now buried underground like a mole, and everything that he wants is he'll never be able to reach, and blah, blah, blah. And
then you met this guy, and he did.
Yeah,
and
he
did. And then this dude, he did too.
That's right.
They all did.
He just lists them all off, and he's like, so, I mean, you're great and everything, but no.
Yeah.
And
no thanks, Black Widow. Yeah.
She gets so pissed. So she goes up to heaven, and she goes to her father, Anu, it said.
Okay.
Or maybe it was her grandfather.
Yeah, I know that she supposedly, she complains to granddaddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and she basically requests that he give her the bull of heaven to basically kill Gilgamesh, because she basically tells him, she's like, he spoke about all the terrible and vile things that I've done. And Anu is like, yeah.
Yeah.
So you want me to give him a weapon? Why? Or give you a weapon? And she's like, yeah. So she threatens, if Anu won't give her the bull of heaven, which is some ridiculously powerful weapon, that she's going to raise the dead and mingle all the dead with the living, and they'll be eating everything. It's just like this scenario she describes is just total chaos.
And she wants the Taurids. The bull
Yeah,
of
basically.
heaven. Yeah.
She wants the Taurids. Yeah. She wants, so she gets the bull of heaven, because Anu's just like, damn, all right.
Right. And Anu also, supposedly, Inanna was his favorite, and they were lovers.
Oh, okay.
Like, at least that's the part of the story that I know, that whenever Anu came to Earth, that she always stayed with him, and yeah. So she's like,
Yeah,
granddaddy.
so she basically, she threatens to destroy everything on all of the order in the world if he doesn't give her this weapon that can kill Gilgamesh. But she forgot about Enkidu. She sends his bull down there, and it shows up, and like, it's kind of the way the story describes it is that it snorted, and 100,000 men died or whatever.
Wow.
And then it snorted again, and hundreds more died. But it's kind of like almost like telling about a battle. Like they sent troops out.
Yeah.
And
They're hurling humans.
They're hurling humans, and it just like it was just destroying everything. And Enkidu just shows up and just freaking grabs it by the horns. And it's like, Gilgamesh, stab it in the balls. Or in the nape or whatever.
Yeah.
He's just holding his horns, and so Gilgamesh goes up there and kills it. And Inanna she's just like furious, right? She's all pissed off because they killed the bull of heaven.
So this is like this is the Mithra story too, with the bull. The constellation or whatever of Orion is like Mithras is
Stabbing
it in the shoulder. Yeah. That's interesting.
So yeah, he's holding the horns and he stabs it, and just, I mean, it was just like they just kicked its ass, like no big
like
deal.
Kumbaba.
Right.
Why the bull?
So Inanna gets like all pissed off, and she starts cursing him, and Enkidu rips off one of his flanks and just throws it in her face, and is like,
"Shut up, bitch!"
Exactly, dude. Tells her to STFU, GTFO. He's like, if I could get my hands on you, I would destroy your ass.
Praise Ea.
Ea be praised. So they end up like, cutting the horns, and like it tells you all about the measurements of the horns and how much beer they could hold and everything. They're just like, yes, this freaking horn is awesome.
Yeah, I can see that. How much beer do you think this horn can hold? I don't know. Let's try it out.
We're going to have to drink it with straw.
That's right.
So anyway, there's like an assembly of the gods after this, and now everybody's kind of pissed off that they've killed Humbaba, and now they've uprooted the cedar forest, and now they've destroyed the bull of heaven, and like what they start complaining to the creator goddess, right? Like and then they start pointing fingers, and it's like, no, this is Enlil's problem, right? The sun god Shamash, who he basically like helped Gilgamesh and Enkidu all the way through their quest to kill Humbaba, and he hated Humbaba,
Yeah.
the sun god, and so he blames Enlil, and then Enlil gets pissed, and they have this whole fight, and then what it ultimately ends up happening is they decide that one of them has to die, because they're too powerful,
Right.
So
God, I hate this part.
yeah, that ends up being Enkidu.
Yeah.
And he basically just falls ill in the city and just has this slow decline, and he can't do anything and he can't move, and he's just like laying on his deathbed, and
Yeah.
and then he's all bummed out because, there was honor and glory in dying,
In battle.
But this is like a shameful
wasting
death.
like cancer death. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of long and drawn out, and Gilgamesh is just like, when he finally dies, like Gilgamesh just loses his mind, and is like mourning, and has him build this massive statue, but then he can't look at the statue. he's so freaking depressed.
Commissions this enormous statue of him, and he's like,
I can't look at it. Yeah. God, every time I walk outside, there he is.
I gotta leave.
Yeah. I'm making light of it, but it's actually a
That's
moving
really
part.
sad. Yeah.
But so he ends up, he basically just bails. He goes into exile because he can't get over it. And one of the customs is to wear a lion's pelt when you're in mourning. So he goes to this mountain and he just like murders all the lions, and he puts on all of their pelts. Like
That's why he's holding the line.
exactly.
Okay.
He just killed that lion. He's just about to freaking wear his skin. So he's walking around in like lion skins for multiple years, because it describes his face as being burnt from heat and cold.
Yeah.
Right. So he's like going through season after season after season, just being out in the wilderness.
He's weathered. Yeah.
And he finally, this is when he kind of, he figures out he's just going to go look for Utnapishtim, who
This is where isn't this where he's grappling also with the concept of mortality.
Right, exactly. Like now Enkidu is dead, and he's just like, dude, that same fate is going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a, I don't know, it's oxymoron, not oxymoron, but it's kind of like, it doesn't make sense that he can't stand living without his friend, but now he's going to go seek immortality.
Yeah, I
right.
see.
He wants to live forever, but it's like he's so fearful of that same thing happening to himself. I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's like he's having trouble coming to terms with his friend's death, but he also is realizing that his death is thus imminent.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's one
paradoxical
legend in those people's time, and that was of Utnapishtim, who was the Noah character in the Great Flood.
Yeah.
And he was supposedly given everlasting life by the gods. So he's like, I'm going to go find this guy and talk to him about how not to die.
Yeah.
So he goes on this long journey, and he's just crossing all these lands, and he finally ends up at this mountain, and there's like a scorpion beings. It's a dual being. They're like both Gemini and Scorpio or something. They're twins, but they're scorpions. And he has this conversation with them, and he's like, I want to go through they're the guardians of the gate of the mountain. And he's like, I need to get to Utnapishtim to ask him about immortality. And they're like, no man has ever traveled through this mountain. It's like too far. It's darkness, total darkness. And you have to get through it before the sun beats it. Like if the sun beats you in a revolution or something, then you'll never get there. There's something weird about that.
That's astronomical.
He has to race the sun to get through the darkness in this mountain.
It's like eclipse.
Exactly.
Astronomical clues there. Yeah.
Right. And the depth of the darkness in the mountain is 12 leagues.
Ha.
Right.
Of course it is.
So this is where I was starting to think, like, part of my analysis of the whole epic. At this part, I started thinking, what if Gilgamesh and Enkidu both were civilizations?
Yeah, I remember you saying
that their
this.
characters were civilizations, right? One of them is this single civilization that's just more powerful than anything else, and then another civilization rises up and then challenges it, right?
Yeah.
Just the same. You just replace the people with the civilization, and you can see, and then they conquer these powerful forces on the earth, and they're able to utilize them and do all this stuff, right?
There's also the story of the teaching of the wild men. First, they learn the agriculture.
Yes.
Right. And then like they slowly move to the city phase.
Right.
Like from the wilds, the hunter gatherer or whatever, like one with the beasts and the forest and the trees.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. So this other culture slowly teaches them to but this
and
guy,
then they become a rival
right.
at some point.
So they're like barbarians or whatever, like this enormous freaking, lion butt flap wearing, like incredibly powerful, but they slowly learn from this other civilization. They become rivals, and then they fight, but then they ally,
right?
And they're like, you know what? Let's go kick this other stuff's ass or whatever.
And the women, like the women are the civilizing agency, right?
Right.
They are constantly civilizing the brutish nature of man,
right? Exactly.
So I thought that was cool, but he goes into he basically tells these squirps. He's like, squirp tarts.
Freaking squirps. Squirp tarts.
He's like, I want to go through the mountain. And they're like, you're going to die. And he's like,
no, you're squirp derping me right now.
Yeah, you're squirp derping me right now. So they end up opening the gate for him. They open the gate and he goes in. And the way this part of the story is told is interesting. It tells you the same thing over and over and over. He goes 1 league and the darkness was thick. There was no light. He could see nothing ahead and nothing behind him. After 2 leagues, the darkness was thick and there was no light, and he could see nothing ahead and nothing behind him. After 3 leagues, the darkness was thick and he could see nothing ahead and nothing behind him. And it does this all the way up, and at some point it's like, after 8 leagues, Gilgamesh cried out because the darkness was thick and there was no light. And he could see nothing ahead and nothing behind him. And he finally gets to, like, I don't know, I think it was...
You said it was 12.
Yeah, he gets to like 11 leagues and he can feel the wind on his face.
Right.
But it was still darkness. And then he gets to 12 leagues and he made it, like he makes it out after 12 leagues. And he did it
in a single whatever.
He beat the sun. He saw the sunlight. And he was like, I made it. Like I beat the sun.
Right.
So that definitely astronomical. I haven't figured out exactly what it was, but one of my first thoughts was like, this is almost like, this 12,000 year period,
right,
that we've been talking about, from the end, or the end of the last ice age, or the deluge, or whatever you want to call it, the flood. There has been all this darkness,
right, in terms of knowledge.
Yeah,
that's what you mean. Yeah.
Right.
So the civilization is trying to go through all this period, and
and they talked about like Atlantis and being 9,000 years before the time of Solon, or whatever. And it's like he's at 8 leagues and he screams out, right? Like there's some. It's like I was trying to imagine it as like
that's when they built the pyramids.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like are they foretelling the coming out of the dark? Of the what are the yugas, the golden age, the bronze age, the iron age, like they're foretelling, like in some way.
I see what you mean. Yeah,
I don't know. It's not perfect, but it's just interesting the way it was done, and I definitely agree it's astronomical in some way. But anyway, he gets to the other side of the mountain, and there's a couple of other elements. There's this female who is a winemaker that he comes upon. And he's trying to get more information about how now there's like a body of water that he has to cross. And the winemaker lady like sees him coming, and he's just like covered in all these lion pelts and his face is all burned, and he's just like, he looks terrible. And she's like, she tries to lock her gate, and he shoves his foot in there and he's like, why are you barring your gate against me, woman?
I'm only 18 feet tall and covered in lions.
And she's like, because you look like really terrible right now. Well, why shouldn't I look terrible? My best friend has died. I mean, he's just like, he's a mess. So
I just walked 12 leagues through a mountain in darkness and my best friend is dead, woman.
He tells you the whole story. Like, that's why he looks like he does. So she ends up giving him information that he has to go to Oceanabi, who is he's the ferryman. So now you have the ferryman, right? There's the winemaker woman, and she's at the end of the mountain pass.
Yeah.
You know, there's the Scorp twins at the beginning of the mountain pass that guard the gate. And then he gets past the winemaker woman, who also has a gate that she can bar and lock or whatever. And he was able to get through it by talking to her, telling her his story. So she gives him information.
Sure, she's like Dionysius or Aquarius.
Yeah, Aquarius maybe. So she gives him information. So then he goes to Oceanabi, who's the ferryman, and he has this boat, and it has all this tackle and everything. And but she tells him that he will never take him across, right?
Yeah,
he's never.
You
don't
have
happen.
any coins. Chiron
are,
requires coins.
Yeah, you're a mortal man, and no mortal man has ever crossed. So Gilgamesh is like, just runs down there with a freaking weapon in his hand and just starts kicking ass. Like he just started, and he's destroying all this shit. And then he finds Oceanabi, and he's like, "Dude, you must take me across now." And he's like, Oceanabi's like all calm. He's like, "Yeah, hi Gilgamesh. Yeah, I know who you are. You just destroyed the boat."
Way to kick it in, Pele.
Yeah, that boat was what got me across the ocean. Because he tells him no at first, and Gilgamesh is like, "Why? Like, you travel across the ocean all the time." And he's like, "Yeah, because you just destroyed the thing that I used." And it's the water of death, too, so you can't touch it. Or there's a portion of it that's the water of death.
Yeah, just like the river Styx.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Oceanabi tells him to go
all the way back to Lebanon and get me some cedar to build a new boat.
Go cut 120 poles, 60 cubits long.
Wow.
Paint them with bitumen and set on them ferules.
Ferules.
I'm not really sure what those are, but so he goes out and does exactly what 120, 60. And that's how many poles it takes, because like they get on the boat and they go, like he rows at first or whatever to get them to the actual part of the water that's the waters of death.
Yeah.
And once he gets there, he can't even have the water touch him, so he uses a pole and he shoves it in. And then when it gets to the end of it, he has to let it go, and then he puts another one in. And after 120 of them, he makes it to the shore.
Wow. Yep.
And they have to be 60 cubits long, so it's 60 cubits times, you know what I'm saying? It's like
math. Precession.
Yeah. So they get to the shore, and that's where Utnapishtim and his wife are. And he has the whole meeting with them. And of course, Utnapishtim is like, how is this even possible? No mortal man should even be able to do this.
Yeah.
So Gilgamesh tells them the whole story. And the first thing that Utnapishtim tells him is that in order, like, it's kind of confusing because he says, like, no, you can't have it. Like,
yeah,
the gods
complete
gave
refusal.
it. Yeah, the gods gave it to me. And then he kind of tells him, like, okay, well, if you were going to get it, you would have to stay awake for so many days or something.
Yeah.
In order to get it. And immediately Gilgamesh passes out because he's just so freaking tired. He's like, I'll do it. And he sits down and then just
fail.
Just like immediate epic fail. I think it's almost like Utnapishtim was just messing with him, right? He's just so worn out. And
he sees how tired he is. He's like, first you have to stay awake for 12 days.
Yeah.
I can do that.
So again, the bread, the wife, Utnapishtim tells him, okay, bake a loaf of bread every single day that he sleeps. And so she bakes 7 loaves of bread or whatever.
Because he sleeps for 7 days.
He sleeps for 6 days, and the 7th one is like still in the oven when he wakes up. And so he's like, look, at your first loaf is like rotten, a log full of, it's been eaten, and this one's hard, and that one's got fuzz growing on it, and this one has mold, this one has mildew,
gross.
This one's stale, and that one's still in the oven. That's how many days you've been asleep.
Now you got to eat them all.
It was just a way
Yeah.
to convince him that he actually slept, because
Right.
he tells him, he's like, humans are devious and they're liars, and they'll, he's not going to believe this, and he's going to try to get around it.
And it takes a full day to bake a loaf of bread. So
Right.
You know this. We could totally track time by bread baking.
Yeah. So this is the part where basically Utnapishtim goes and tells the whole story of the deluge. And we've told this story before, but it's, that the gods, it was Enlil who decided that all man needed to be destroyed, and because he couldn't get any sleep by reason of their babble.
That's right.
And so they decided to destroy the world with a flood and make everyone swear that they're not going to tell the humans. And Ea, or Enki, decides that he's going to Utnapishtim's house, and he's just going to tell the house.
Right.
While Utnapishtim is on the other side of the wall.
Yeah. If I were you, Wall.
And it's a reed house. He's like, reed house. Pay attention to my words. Don't move. And don't speak. And so he tells him the whole thing, and he tells him the boat to build, which is 72 cubits by 24 cubits. And 7 decks deep, like the top deck, and then 6 decks below.
Yeah.
And each deck divided by 2 portcullises to make a total of 9 rooms, right? 2 portcullises in either direction.
Yeah. Makes a Rubik's Cube.
Exactly. It's a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, but it's 7 levels. Yeah.
It's a Rubik's Cube with 7 levels, each level divided into 9 rooms.
Yeah.
And the dimensions are 72 by 24, which 24 is a third of 72, so it's 1 by 1/3.
Wow.
Pretty interesting.
And 9.
So, yeah.
Everything adds up to 9.
That's right. And with that, we'll take another break.
All right.
Snake break.
So in the break, you guys try to solve a 9 or a 7 level 9 square Rubik's Cube. See how fast you can do it.
Yeah, and how he built that out of his reed house. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tear down your house and build this boat.
Sell all your reeds and build the boat or something. All right, we'll be back for the rest of the story.
Snake Bros, tear down your 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science and build a laser beam gun for chopping down cedars so you can make pyramid money. All right, we're back. So
I just want to say, like, the name of the demon, the guardian god, Humbaba. It's just like, I don't know. That sounds like I know I've heard this before in like R&B songs. Dum dum baba, dum dum baba. It's like I've heard that. What's going on here? I gotta check this out.
Na na na.
Yeah, na 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 na. Dum dum baba.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. Keep going.
All right, so we're getting near the end of our epic tale. But so Gilgamesh is with Utnapishtim, the Noah character of the Sumerian legends.
Yeah. Yima, Xisithris, all those names.
And so he basically tells him the whole story about the flood, and that the once the flood, like he had built the boat as Ea or Enki had told him to do, and that it was basically like, it's got all this biblical stuff in it too. It's like sell everything that you own.
Oh yeah.
Sell your house. Give up all of your treasures, right?
Yeah, your worldly possessions.
Your worldly possessions. And do this for me is basically like what Ea was telling him. And do this for just the
right,
wording.
Sacrifice everything you own for all of mankind.
For life.
Yeah.
For life. It's like the classic, element of like rebirth or whatever, being, just in the Christian religion, like sell all of your goods and follow God or
right,
whatever.
The calling.
Yeah. So he does that, and it's just the way it's worded is I can't quote it right now, but it's very, similar. It's like that was almost verbatim written in the New Testament. This is what Jesus is telling people.
Right.
So anyway, he does that. He builds the boat, he builds everything to spec, and then he brings in all the animals and all the stuff, and they go through the flood. And when the flood is over, they land on a mountain, and he waits there for like 7 days, and the boat didn't move. So then he lets loose a dove, and the dove flies away and didn't find anything, came back. And then he lets loose, some other bird, I can't remember, flies away, doesn't find anything, comes back. And he lets loose the raven, and the raven flies away and finds something and doesn't return. And so that he knows that there's land out there, right?
Quoth the raven.
Yeah.
Nevermore.
It's weird to me that it's like the dove was the first one and he totally failed.
Right.
Like he did not come
Peace
back
does
with
not
an olive
work.
branch. Right. Olives don't grow that fast. Trust me.
Yeah. We've been trying to do it and they don't.
Anyway, so they come down from the mountain and they make an offering, a burnt offering that they know will attract all of the gods. So they're burning animals or whatever, and the gods all come down and they're like, everyone can come but Enlil. Like they won't let Enlil come, dude, but he wants to come, And he finally does like bust in and
Crashes the party.
And all the gods bitch him out for what he did. But at first he gets mad because he finds out that, some humans survived.
Right. But the rest of the gods were...
Yeah, it
They were
describes
incredibly
them,
troubled by the destruction. Yeah.
It describes them as weeping when they found out how bad it was. you know?
And that everything they had built was gone, and all the people they loved, and all the places that they loved,
Yeah.
and exactly.
So they chew Enlil out when he gets to the party, and Enlil rages for a little bit about the fact that it goes the other way around. He rages for a little bit about the fact that humans lived, and then the other gods like chew him out.
Yeah.
For what he did and destroying everything, and that he should be happy that these people preserved. Look at what they brought all the animals and everything, and
Yeah. Like, you wiped out all the humans, but you would have had a wasteland of nothing if not for this guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like mad at Enki, and Enki's like, I just told the reed wall, bro.
I just said wall.
So
Again, that's very fairy tale. The tricking, the whole thing about that. I love that those elements of the way that they sneak around their vows and stuff like that. Yeah.
So the end deal is basically Enlil makes a covenant that it won't happen again or whatever. It's like same deal, right? Like, hey, check it out. There's a rainbow over there.
It's a sign that
I made that.
I will never do this again. I promise. I mean, by fire next time. I won't do it by water. This is what I meant.
So apparently Enlil blessed Utnapishtim and his wife by giving them everlasting life of the gods, and they put them in this garden place that was the far away, they called it. And no other man, no mortal man was allowed to go there.
Somewhat like Avalon. It's very similar to Avalon.
Yeah, I don't know Avalon.
The Arthurian tales, like the Isle of Avalon is where the elves dwelt. It was the land of the, not quite the dead, but it was like this hidden, you couldn't get there, no mortal man, so on and so forth. And Arthur is taken to Avalon by Merlin. Yeah.
That's cool. So after he's done basically telling him the whole thing, he's like, so that's it. Like, you have to leave now. Sorry, bro.
That's my story. Get out of here.
But Utnapishtim gives Gilgamesh some clothes that he says they will not wear at all. Like his whole journey, they will be like brand new. And so
I need some of those.
He gets him to strip off all the lion skins and everything and bathe himself, and then he gives him the clothes. And then
sort of a symbol he's maybe out of mourning too, maybe.
Yeah. And he tells Utnapishtim, or I'm sorry, Utnapishtim tells Oshanabi, the ferryman, he's like, all right, you got to take him out of here, and since you brought him here, you can never come back.
Oof, that's harsh.
Yeah. But Utnapishtim, or Oshanabi is like my favorite character in the story now, because he's like so calm about everything. He's just like, all right.
Since you brought him here, you can never return. Okay.
But they're heading back out across the river, and Utnapishtim's wife starts chewing him out. Like, he came all this way and he's like totally worn out on his journey, and you're like, aren't you going to give him something for his whole effort and everything? And
Can you not be a complete asshole?
So Utnapishtim calls him back, and he pulls back over there. And
okay, you can return this one time.
Yeah. One time. And he tells him the location of this plant that's at the bottom of the channel in the sea, deep down in there, and that it's a thorny plant.
And is this under the waters of death?
No.
Okay.
See, the waters of death are like it's like closer to the shore.
Oh, all right.
So that's what they needed the poles for. Like, he got the boat way over there before he had to start using the poles.
Okay, all right. So the deep channel or whatever is not okay.
Yeah, it's out in the ocean or something. I don't understand. It's kind of confusing, but
well, I mean, if you think of it in terms of just seamanship,
yeah, the death waters is close to
the shore.
Right.
That's where you get smashed into rocks and
Right. Yeah, that's probably what it was. Like, all the rigs on the boat,
yeah, and
were to handle the deadly waters of the shore.
Right, and poles are what people have used. Like you watch the whitewater rafters,
yeah.
they're using poles to keep
Against
themselves
the
from
rocks.
smashing
yeah,
the
maybe
rocks.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, he comes back, and then he tells him the location or that there's this plant that's at the bottom of the channel, in the deepest channel or whatever, and it's got spines and thorns, and it'll prick you. But if you can actually get it, then if you eat it, it will revive your youth. It will bring back your youth.
Right. So this is like ambrosia.
Yeah. And once again, it's like, no, you can't have immortality, but if you stay awake for 6 days, you can. And you can't. And then, like, it just makes like everything. And then he says, the gods gave it to me, and I just can't give it to you. And then later he's like, well, there's a plant that'll do it.
Yeah. It
So
won't
it's
make
like-
you immortal, but it'll revive your youth.
So it's like he's just BSing him the whole time or
Yeah.
something. Anyway, he goes out to the channel, and he ties these huge stones to his feet and just drops himself to the very bottom.
I can do this.
Yeah, he walks around down there, and he finds the plant. He pulls it up, and then he cuts the ropes off his feet and swims back up.
That's genius.
And and he's back in the boat with Oceanabi, and he's just like, yeah, dude, I'm gonna take this plant back to the city and feed it to the old men first.
Yeah.
Because he
You're like,
doesn't
"What?"
trust him. He doesn't trust him, right?
Oh.
I wouldn't either. The guy already
okay.
lied to him
I got
twice.
you. All right.
So he's like, he's going to go find like the old men in the city that are about to die, and he's going to give him some of the plant if it restore. But that's not the way the story goes. The story, the way he says it is like, I will give it to the old men, and they will become young again, and I will call it the plant that makes old men young again, and then I will eat it.
This is why we have the FDA, folks. You can't just move to human testing right off the bat.
It's just funny that it's like he won't eat it immediately because he obviously doesn't trust the guy.
Right.
So they get across the ocean, and now Oceanabi's just like, I'm going with you. You know, he's got nothing better to do.
Yeah, I'm no longer the ferryman because I can't
Right.
cross anymore.
So
with you.
So they're hanging out, and they're like, at one point they stop at a watering hole and camp for the night, and Gilgamesh goes in there to bathe. And like, he takes off his robes, which is where he had the plant, I guess, in his pocket or whatever, and on him, and he gets in the water. And while he's in the water, a serpent smells the fruit, smells the fragrant fruit of the plant, and goes and eats it. And when the serpent is slithering off, he sheds his skin and becomes new again. And Gilgamesh sees it happen. Like, he sees the serpent leaving, and he sees that he sheds his old skin, and he's young, and he's like, damn it, it was true.
And again, we have shades of Eden
Yeah.
and the serpent and the fruit.
So now he's all bummed out because, like, they're way, way far away, and now they can't go back. And so he can't get the plant, and he's just, like, feeling like a total failure. And he's still traveling with Oceanabi, who's just like calmly accepting Gilgamesh freaking out and the whole loss of the plant, just like no big deal. And they get back to the city, and like when they're approaching the city, Gilgamesh is like he's kind of gotten over that fact, and like they're getting close to the city, and he's starting to talk to Oceanabi about it. And he's like, we're almost there. Like, look, you can see it in the distance. Look at those walls.
Yeah.
The strong walls, are they not made of burnt brick? And blah blah blah. And he's like describing, look at the foundations and the temple of Inanna, Ishtar.
Yeah.
And all this, and it's all this stuff that he had built before. And it's that's how the story ends, basically. and it's exactly how the story began. The narrator of the story
the city.
is describing the city in the exact same words as Gilgamesh is doing to Oshinabe at the end when they're returning.
Wow, that's cool.
And he engraved it all in a stone.
And that's what we're reading right now.
And that was his destiny, was to do all these deeds, do all these great deeds, and build this badass city and build these great walls and the biggest freaking most badass temple anyone has ever built and ever will build for a really long time.
Yeah.
and engrave all that he did, all of his deeds into a stone. So it's like, this is the part of the story that is analyzed by, I guess, these,
these literature people.
I don't know what to call them.
Yeah.
And they're just like, okay, that's freaking brilliant, right?
Right.
Like the narrator starts out, and it's sort of, goes, the narrator blends right in with the story.
Yeah.
Right after the first few strange lines that's talking about this city in Uruk and Gilgamesh, and he brought us a legend, or he brought us a story of the time before the flood, and he did this and he did that. It lists all of his deeds real quick, and then just like kind of melts away into the story, and then you start getting into this whole story, and at the very end he's like walking with Oshinabe, and he's starting to tell him the same thing that the story began with.
That's cool. I've read lots of stories that do that, where right when you start it, the narrator is obvious, right? He's like, I'm going to tell you this, like the Tale of the Ancient Mariners, classic, right? He grabs the man, like the dude's walking through the town at night, he's leaving the bar or whatever, and this haggard, old, sailor comes out of the darkness of an alley and grabs him, and he's like, I'm going to tell you this story, right? And he's like, you've got to listen to my story. And he's like, we were on the high seas and blah, blah, blah. And then it fades into the story, and then the narrator's gone suddenly, and you're just there. And he tells you the whole story, the Tale of the Ancient Mariner. It's like just
salam and good evening to you,
yeah, my friend. Exactly right. The whole idea of the narrator, then he fades away, and then the story just happens.
Yep, it's a really, really cool story, and there's just so many. This is what I was saying. There's so many different levels of possible meaning that I think this is kind of, what we've talked about on the show before about mythology, and that trying to put in these sort of archetypes, but also tell something true, and then also have like all these other elements, and then metaphors and everything that can stand for different things in life, and you can compare it to like each scenario is like a different thing that's happened to every one of us in life.
Yeah.
But also the whole story is like badass to listen to or to know.
Yeah.
Or to tell. It's just so yeah, it's a great work of art, but that city is there, and those walls are there, and those foundations are there, and
and it's interesting too, because Uruk is one of the cities that is listed in the King's List or King List. It's not the
Gilgamesh
first one.
is listed in the King's List.
It's not the first one. When kingship first came down from heaven, it was in Eridu.
Well, okay, Gilgamesh says that the foundations of the walls he built were built by the 7 sages. Oh. They were laid by the 7 sages.
Oh, man. So the tale of the 7 sages is connected to Utnapishtim and Sisyphus.
Yeah. So that city is old. And then Utnapishtim also tells him that this time before the flood that he lived, there was a city there on the banks of the Euphrates. And this is a pre-Diluvian city.
Antediluvian city.
I'm sorry, antediluvian. Let's see if I can find this.
The 7 sages is very well detailed in the Tale of Manu, which is the Indian story.
Utnapishtim lives in Dilmun. This is the place of the sun's transit east of the mountain. This is not the city I'm talking about. I was just going back to when he goes through the mountain.
Right. East of the mountain.
Yeah, it's called the place of the sun's transit. Right? So he has to go through the mountain and beat the sun.
Yeah.
It's called Dilmun. But let's see.
Dolmen.
Yeah, Dolmen. I think I can find this.
Yeah, Manu, the 7 sages are very well featured in the story of Manu, which is the sort of like Hindu or Buddhist version of the flood. Manu has the fish, and he saves the fish from the tiny little fish or whatever, and he saves it from the wild ocean, and he keeps it in a little jar. And soon it grows too big for the jar, and he puts it in a big pot. And as soon as it grows too big for that, and he puts it in a tank, and then soon it grows too big for that, and it tells him to throw him into the ocean. The fish says, throw me into the ocean, and for saving my life from the denizens of the sea, I will later save yours. And then, like Manu, later, of course, the flood is coming, and the fish comes and tells him the flood's coming, and tells him to build this enormous boat, and then to tether it to his horn. The fish has this horn. Tether it to his horn, and he will guide his boat through the cataclysm. And Manu is told by the gods to get the 7 sages onto the boat. So and all the animals and the seeds of everything. But the 7 sages are the most important because they carry all the knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it says it was the foundations of the city were laid by the 7 sages.
Wow.
And then Gilgamesh he built the walls, the ramparts, the temple of Ishtar.
Yeah, after the hard part was done.
Right. After the hill was leveled and all of that granite was cut to the contours of the sediment. Okay, so the Shurapak is the name of the antediluvian city. It was on the banks of the Euphrates.
Yeah.
That he lived in.
That's another one of the king list cities. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's all this, I mean, definitely real shit in the story.
Yeah.
But
so what's if I'm remembering this correctly, what's interesting about what we now have dug up, like the archaeology has dug up and considered to be the city of Uruk, is that it doesn't show flooding, like whereas Eridu does. Like the lower levels of it show that it was covered in a flood and they rebuilt. Uruk does not, and this is so in Graham Hancock's Underworld. He discusses how this is probably because the original Uruk discussed in the Gilgamesh theory was like the oldest one, because it makes it clear that the 7 sages built the foundations, which means just post-diluvial, right? The 7 sages were saved by the boat. Okay. So if they
also built foundations prior to,
right? That's true. Yeah, but basically Graham Hancock is thinking that the original Uruk, the antediluvian city, is underwater now.
Okay.
Yeah, and that the 7 sages rebuilt, just like we have New York.
Right. So the cities that don't have like crazy flood signs all over them, their foundations were built by the 7 sages. Whatever is kind of the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like right after the flood.
Right.
Yeah. That was the idea, that the 7 sages built the foundations of New Uruk, just like yeah.
So this asshole Enlil it destroys the world to try to kill everybody, and then he doesn't succeed, and he gets mad, and then he tells a lie that he's not going to ever do it again, and then he gives everlasting life to the guy who he was mad that he lived, and he puts him over to this other place, and then he goes to this new cedar forest that's growing over top of these ancient Anunnaki dwellings.
Yeah.
And he puts some freaking guardian there to prevent anybody from going and discovering that.
Right.
It's like he has all throughout the mythology about Enlil he is just obsessed with keeping man down and keeping him from knowing anything and not learning and not spreading out and not just stay put, shut up, don't breed.
Yeah.
So it's like that. And the sun god, Shamash, is like a friend to Gilgamesh, hates this guardian of the forest.
Yeah.
Wants to kill him. And he's not even alive. Like the guardian tells Gilgamesh too, is like, I had no mother or father.
Right.
I was built by Enlil.
I'm a construct. Yeah.
So it's, he's not a living thing.
Right.
But he's
a golem of some kind.
Yeah. He's AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's hated by Shamash. And so Shamash helps them destroy him. And it's like, what was he protecting? He wasn't protecting the forest. They called him the guardian of the forest, but really he was protecting
that ancient
shit under there that Enlil didn't want mankind to find.
Right. Yeah. I just had a thought too.
Oh, wow. I had no idea Shurapak is spelled that way.
Shurapak is the Watcher says Shurapak is apparently now the modern city of Tel Farah. Tel is interesting because Tel is what they call mounds there, like a mound. They call it a Tel. This tells you that it's an ancient construction.
So Tel Aviv
yeah,
is the mound of Aviv.
yeah. It's like a Tel is just what they call the remnants of its ruins. It looks like a hill, but it's a Tel. Like it tells you that that's what's under it. That's
a telltale sign.
Any city where you see Tel blah blah blah, it's an ancient place built on top of an even more ancient place.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting snake fact.
When were you going to tell me that snake fact?
When were you going to come
just
then? All right, so what do you got? Or did you throw in all of your
No, I didn't
surrounding...
I didn't throw in all my surrounding stuff. So the let's see, how do I organize? I just had an idea and I just lost it. I was waiting for you to finish and trying not to interrupt you, and I completely lost it. Damn it. But so there are, like, we talked about there's this, like, very new evidence of this impact that basically chips the top of a mountain off. Like, there's no crater, but there's this enormous avalanche that brought down, like, and it covered everything beneath the mountain, like, within 500, they were saying, like, 500 meters of material. So nobody's dug down beneath it, but there's this avalanche, and they could see it. And they know that it's this deep before it gets to the the paleo surface, basically whatever the ground was before this happened. And it wasn't, there's no crater, and it was not a volcano. These are like not volcanic mountains. So something clipped the top of this mountain, and they're basically, the guy has, like, I can't remember who it was, but the research is basically showing that it was probably some object from space that comes in, never touches the surface of the earth, but like
a bolide sort of.
Yeah. And it may have exploded in the air because it hits the mountain and blows up.
Yeah.
Right? And the mountain just falls on everything beneath it on that level.
And of course it'll be raining down fire.
So
I had the feeling that the dreams in the epic are actually a more realistic expression of what happened. Like they're like, you know what I'm saying? It was almost like these dreams are the most realistic, unpoetic,
except for the axe. The first one about the meteor, I see that part, But the axe in the city square is very
metaphoric,
symbolic,
Yeah, that's true. But then the other ones that he has about, like, before they fight Humbaba, with the mountain that falls and the sky is raining down, and just there was violence and pestilence from the sky, and all there's just crazy shit happening, and the whole world is, like, being destroyed or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's describing things that happened in the deluge, right?
Right. He's having dreams of the past, but he doesn't. He's associating it with the fight they're about to go have.
Exactly.
But it's actually this is the way of inserting in this story, just like they inserted the flood, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say, this is what I was going to say.
And the meteor. That was okay. Go ahead.
I'm going to forget again. The whole thing. Again, I kept the fairy tales thing. I've done all this reading on fairy folklore. Right. And I really haven't gone into, I want to one day come down here with the book and go through some of these stories, but I need to mark the ones. But anyway,
you need to do that.
The fairy tales, the way these folklore tales, like, weave in things like this, the way they trick people with what looks like a blessing and is a curse.
Yeah.
So when you're telling the part about Enlil comes to the party when he's not invited, and everyone's like, hey, man, F you, because you tried to kill everything. And he's like, oh, they all should have died. And then they all act mad. And so he's like, oh, okay, you're right.
Yeah.
I promise I will never do it again, by water. And I will give you everlasting life, Uptim Pishtim. That's a curse for a human, to live forever.
And you're the only one?
In all the fairy tales, immortality is a curse. It's one of those wishes that you shouldn't wish for. The person who gets it is never happy.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying,
they know dies, and
and you're like, you can't die.
Yeah.
Immortality is different from having a plant of life that will
rejuvenate,
because you can choose eventually to stop and to age naturally. But if you're immortal, all the eons of the universe are yours to look forward to in this physical existence, never changing. never being able to do anything. Like the gift of prophecy is the same way. So like there's the whole story of the woman who's cursed, but she's cursed by one of the goddesses of, this is a Greek myth. It's one of those deals where she's like the greatest weaver or whatever in the world, and like, but Athena's the goddess of weaving, and Athena's like, well, I'm actually better than you, and this woman's like, okay, well, let's weave duel, and she wins, and Athena grants her the gift of prophecy, but the curse of it is that no one will ever believe her. Right?
See, that's straight up like the way Inanna would,
Yeah.
quote unquote, bless people.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So like all these elements that I'm seeing in here, like the way that the gods are like, they're just petty and
Yeah.
And vindictive, and like the Watcher was saying, like, Gilgamesh says, no thanks, I don't want to marry you because you'll kill me, and she's like, I'm totally going to kill you for saying that, right? Like,
Yeah.
basically it's what? This is a lose situation here. If you marry her, she's going to kill you, and if you don't marry her, she's going to kill you.
I love it. Enkidu just like rips off the leg of the bull and throws it in her face.
Yeah.
And then he tells her, he's like, if I could get my hands on you, I'd tie these entrails around your neck. It's like holding the guts of the bull.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's some element there also in the, okay, so we have also the Babel story, right? So you have this whole like, oh, I can't sleep by reason of the Babel, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's the story of like, if you look at the biblical Babel story, what's happening?
They're building a tower.
And everyone's speaking the same language.
Right.
Or these two powerful civilizations have joined forces.
Yeah.
And they're speaking the same language, and they're building the tower, and they must scatter them. Right?
Yeah.
The humans are getting too powerful.
That's the same thing with like
Enkidu and Gilgamesh. They're
yeah.
too powerful when they're allied.
Together, yeah.
Yeah. And like one starts to wuss out, and the other one's like, no, man, come on, we can do this. And then the other one's like, yeah, you're right. The other one's like, wait a minute, I don't know. He's got a giant eye, and he's got all these things. No, man, come on, we can do it.
Yep.
So then I'm thinking of Göbekli Tepe, because I was looking at Göbekli Tepe again because the whole place is very, it's timely. It's like, I'm thinking of like the end of the Ice Age and the whole deluge, and then you have there's the whole like twin or two brothers or whatever, and then like if you look at the
Romulus and
Romulus and Remus, and like how they were wild men and they were raised by wolves, and then they come out of the forest and they found Rome, right? And
I mean, that's almost the same deal as Enkidu, because he's like sucking the milk of animals. That's the only way he can eat.
Right.
And then he comes out of the forest and eats bread and drinks
Right.
wine.
And the Romulus and Remus story is that the mother wolf fed them with her milk.
Yeah.
Like raised them on her milk, right? So they were weaned of the milk of wolves. Like, yeah. So, but I'm looking at the Göbekli Tepe thing, and the T-pillars, the two giant ones in the middle. And they're anthropomorphized, and they're together, and one has the fox pelt, the trickster.
Does one have an axe?
Yeah, they have weapons, but they're kind of, one has these H's, and then he has got the belt, right? And I was watching Andrew Collins. He was giving this.
The other one has the front flap, which is the fox pelt.
Right. So the fox or canines in general have been associated with comets. Okay, in ancient mythology and ancient symbolism, a canine, a dog, right? So you have Anubis, right?
Yeah,
he's the guide into the land of the dead.
Yeah, well, also like the dog is like the follower, like so a comet coming in is like dogging you,
right? And then if you look at just the pure symbolism, you think of a fox. The comet has the head and then this big bushy white tail.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you see.
Right.
This little tail like.
Right. You see the fox. Yeah. But Andrew Collins
What does it say though?
About the fox?
Yeah.
It screams like a woman in the middle of the night. But Andrew Collins was pointing out on the Göbekli Tepe T-pillar statues that one of them has this belt buckle, right?
Yeah.
And he shows you how the belt buckle is this triple U shape. Mm-hmm. And then he shows these pictures of comets that people have taken recently, comets that are coming into the solar system, and they have the same bow shock triple U shape in
Wow.
front of them. And he's like, could this be what this is? Because like Göbekli Tepe seems to be a memorial of the destruction. They have all these extinct animals all over it, and then there's these two giant human figures that are standing together, but they're standing together, but they're slightly back to back. This is another thing that made me think of Enkidu and Gilgamesh, right?
Yeah.
The two central T-pillars are not perfectly parallel.
Yeah.
They're tilted slightly, like they're standing kind of facing out,
Yeah.
like they're back to back with each other, and they're both badass, and they're like they got their hands on their belt buckles, and like one of them has the fox pelt, and like there's all this symbolism of the destruction, but
cool.
the two like demigods that were the protector of all the other smaller T-pillars around them, the humans.
Yeah. Surrounded by lizards and snakes and birds and pumas.
That's right. And so I was thinking of that, and like so Upaut, the older Egyptian name for the dog,
Yeah.
Anubis, Upaut, which Gantenbrink named his robot that went up the shafts. But then there's the Norse legend of Fenris or Fenrir,
Fenrir, yeah.
right? Fenrir is a dog that like shows up in Ragnarok, the end of the world, the doom of the gods. Fenrir comes from the sky and like has all these pups, and it just does all this fire and destruction.
Yep.
So again, you have the comet symbol. It's and the giants will rise up to fight the gods in Ragnarok, and like it's just all this strange imagery. But in this story, Gilgamesh, you have these giants fighting the gods.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many similarities across all. This is what I was trying to research. I wanted to look at other myths that I thought could tie into or match with the Gilgamesh thing. So Fenrir is a big one. And like the whole like the giants will rise and fight the gods, and this is the doom of the gods. It's the doom of the gods.
Isn't
Why is Ragnarok
Anubis also the ferryman?
Anubis is
Who's the ferryman in the Egyptian?
I don't know if there was a ferryman, or maybe there was, but I can't remember. But I know the
didn't you
Greeks
give him a
had
coin or something?
Yeah, the Greeks had his name was it's not Chiron. That's what I always think of. It starts with a CH. Watcher, can you find that? Who was the Greek ferryman for going across the river Styx?
I'm sure it was Anubis in Egyptian. Yeah, because he was on the boat, like those huge boats, right? There's like the whole deal,
Yeah.
like he takes you, he leads you
The
on
barks,
the boat. Yeah.
solar boats.
Yes, solar boats. And you have to, go the path of the sun.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
Charon, yeah, Charon is the name of the Greek, and he's the ferryman, and so that's why they would bury the people. They would put the two coins over the eyes because that's why you paid the ferryman.
Yeah. The other thing I want to know,
He must have had a shitload of gold.
have you ever heard of Oceanabi? And I don't know how his name is spelled either. Oceanabi.
I've heard
That's the
the.
ferryman's name.
It sounds really familiar.
Yeah, probably foam of the sea.
Yeah. Oceanabi, Oceania, I like it. So the Nan Madol also is like a hidden place of the gods. In Micronesia.
I don't remember that one.
Nan Madol is the giant. It's the
Urshanabi.
Urshanabi. That's interesting. Nan Madol is the place in Micronesia on the island that's in the water that was like it's 500 million tons of columnar basalt stacked up.
Oh,
into these
yeah. Yeah.
And what is it? The two brothers and build the place overnight. They come out of the east or whatever, and they build the place overnight. As a tribute to something or other. There's so many stories like this of the two heroes.
Yep.
So I think that the Epic of Gilgamesh. I wonder if it's a compilation. That's the other thing I've thought of.
Yeah. There's actually more stories. Like, I found out that there's actually another tablet. Like, okay, first of all, this is all in fragments.
Right.
Okay, so there are missing parts of the story. And some of the fragments have been found in different places and whatever, and compiled from libraries. And I mean,
but all the best pyramids are gone.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, there's, it's a pretty good form as it is right now. But there's another tablet that's after the end of the story. Okay, and
Like an epilogue?
and Enkidu is back, like he's there, and like something happens with the underworld, like somebody steals something and takes it to the underworld, and Gilgamesh is like, oh my god, I'll never get it back, and Enkidu's like, I'll go get it. And so they plan all this stuff, and Gilgamesh, like, they work out this whole plan, and like Gilgamesh is teaching Enkidu about all the different things, like, okay, first, bro, don't eat anything, don't wear any of their clothes, blah blah blah, like all this fairy tale shit.
Yeah.
And then Enkidu's like, I got it, bro. No problem. And he goes down there and he doesn't come back. He gets stuck, right?
He's like, that food looks good. Oh, give me those clothes. Oh.
Yeah. And so, like, they have I don't remember. I didn't actually get that part of the story, but I just heard a synopsis of it. But I think Gilgamesh ultimately has to go down there and save him.
Yeah. That's also a classic story that's across the ages and across the civilizations of, like, somebody is in the afterlife or in the underworld, and someone who's still alive goes to can't handle it and goes to retrieve them. And like sometimes it's lovers, sometimes it's gods and goddesses. Like Hades steals Persephone.
Yeah.
And and then her mother begs, or she can't return because she ate the seed of a pomegranate or something like that, and like she can't return, but her mother begs for Hades to at least let her come visit. So every spring, Persephone is allowed to go to the service to visit her mother, and she is the goddess of life, so everything blooms and everything in the spring. Yeah.
But this is why I'm like really going with the idea that these two characters are actually civilizations,
right?
Like the Enkidu's death is like not that he lost in war,
right?
Which would be, say, two city-states or countries or civilizations are fighting and one loses or whatever, like in the beginning.
Right.
But this one, he just rots from within and just...
Or it's some kind of plague.
Yeah, something like that, right? Just wipes him out.
Yeah.
And it's not noble or...
like, this is the other thing. Like, what if it's a memory of the Neanderthals?
Yeah.
Because they're all gone, right? And like that, something kills them off at the end of the Ice Age or whatever. Like they all completely gone, but we remember them as brothers. There's these ancient, like they're the dwarves, the underground or the wild men, whatever. There's something about that too, that they could be another version. Yeah, Sam Squanch. All right, well, I think that's it. Now you know the rest of the story. That was
epic tale.
That was a fantastic recount. The Brothers of the Serpent version of the Epic of Gilgamesh, King of Uruk.
Look at the walls. Are they not made of burnt brick and good? It's great.
Yeah. So, just a couple things. I wanted to thank you guys, first of all, for spreading the word. The podcast is growing by leaps and bounds right now.
Yeah, thanks
and
for that.
It is just like blowing my mind how much it's growing, and it's all due to you guys because we have done no advertising. So thank you all very much. We are about to cross the 10,000 downloads threshold. Like, that's just blowing my mind. Like,
Heck yeah.
10,000 unique downloads of the shows. That's amazing, since we have done nothing but you guys have done word of mouth. That's awesome. And we have, the website is getting hits from everywhere. It's amazing. Like,
that's cool.
There's like 500 views of the website yesterday. Like, that's a lot for us. Like, that's a lot. This is a big deal for us. So I just wanted to thank you guys so much for that. We have a 5-star rating on iTunes. Like, everyone who has given us a rating on there has given us 5 stars. So, and it's not just like 2 people, it's more than that. So thank you guys very much. Like, it really is looking good. I thank you guys so much. And that's basically it. So thank you very much, and good night, Adamu.
Good night.
Get back to work.